Welcome to Season 2, Episode 2 of the Spartan Spectator podcast, the place for you to be caught up on what's going on at the school and around town. My name is Adler Johnston, and my co-host is Dan McGeera.
Hello.
Joining us today is Coach Mike Morrissino to talk about the Spartan football team and what it's like to be in the school as a teacher this time. So, Dan, I'm going to send it over to you to start with questions.
Well, Coach, how's it going today?
It's going well. I'm excited to be on this.
Nice. So, at the start of the year, what do you think the identity of the team was going to be compared to kind of what it shifted to as of now?
Yeah, so, as a coach in the sport of football, you get an idea who's coming out as far as players, but you never know till day one. So you hope an identity starts to form through the preseason. You really don't have an idea necessarily because things change. Players come out, players don't. So this year, like normal years, it's us trying to figure our identity out through a million different things in our preseason. And this group was different. This group came out this year and was really focused. And a lot of that we saw, we got kind of that idea in the preseason with all the winter lifting, the conditioning, things like that. You could definitely tell this team was a little different and it was going to be a hardworking group. And overall, our identities actually, to me, has changed since day one of the fall for a variety of different reasons. So you never really know as a coach. You think you have an idea, but things happen, things change. And you just hope you get a good identity that can help you win games.
Yep. All right. And for Cade Boydston, he was named captain at the last practice. What led you to name Connor Robidoux and Gabe Alsop as well as Cade Boydston captain, especially Cade Boydston later in the year?
Yeah. So for us, our coaches are involved in naming captains. We don't let the kids decide. Kids decide leaders for us. We have a hierarchy of things. And we want the kids to have influence and pick their leaders, and for the variety of reasons of why kids would pick them, but we dictate who the captains are. And, we named those at the banquet last year, Connor and Gabe, and we think they exemplify a lot of things. We care about just as much what you do on the field as what you do off the field. Acting right, behaving right, doing very well academically. They're very high honors, taking tough classes type of kids. And they do a lot of little things right. And this year was actually, it was tougher than usual. Usually every year, I'll be honest with you, we've had years where, we're scraping together captains and we're hoping for the best. This year we've had a lot of kids step up, especially as seniors. And the captain term is not just for seniors with us either. So there were some qualified juniors in there as well. But those two were the ones that stood out. And I don't believe in naming kids to name kids. I believe that devalues the term and what a captain is. But those two were the ones who stuck out, early and often, have done a lot with us, been a long time, been around us for a long time. And then naming Cade this week, I think he's taken a huge influence on helping some of the younger guys. I think what he's done with Jake Miller, who's been an outstanding football player for us. Yeah. I can see the development and the support Cade has given him since really last year. And I thought that was huge because that's what we want to do. We want to have those upperclassmen be guides, be mentors, be leaders to those younger guys, because that only helps us get better in the long term. I know there's always the class separation, and we're, even at like the pep rally, we have the junior seniors, but the best teams I've ever been on are top to bottom, freshmen to seniors, are all together. And this group this year, we have that. And a lot of that stems from the leaders and those other seniors. And, even the juniors who've been with us now for a long time. Our culture has changed and our priorities have changed. And I think that's a big factor in why we're having the success we're having.
So speaking about those, like the youngsters that are picking it up, people like Dom Serafino and Porter Carroll, who really push for those practices and really push in practice, trying to make everyone better. How do you think that's impacted the team?
It's everything. Those aren't the two who are getting, those are just two examples. But those aren't the two every Friday night when you look at the articles and see what we did and how we did. Those aren't the names that are coming up. Those are the guys who are putting in the time to get us in positions to win on Friday night. It's a huge piece. And for a long time in East Long Meadow, and I still think it's a thing we're overcoming, is when you get to that compete factor. A lot of kids are afraid to compete against those upperclassmen because the upperclassmen will say, hey, slow down. We don't need to do this today. Those kids will push the envelope and they will play really hard. And we've had more young kids step into roles, which, historically maybe isn't what they're going to be doing at this time of year. But those are those kids. And you've seen even some of our upperclassmen who were maybe just in that same position last year, and you're seeing the rewards of them pushing themselves in practice to get better. And those are a lot of the kids who are playing for us this year. So it's just ultimately trying to build a culture where Competing's okay. It's good to compete. You love each other after. I want you to be at a point where you're almost fighting each other. But when practice is done, it's bygones be bygones. And we're all fighting for the same cause. We are all one. And I think that's a big piece. And another, again, I hate to keep repeating myself, but another big piece to us this year is that has increased. And I hope to keep building on it. But those two, especially Dom and Porter, I will give them a lot of credit. They go to battle every day. Jaden Lage is another one I want to throw out as another name.
It's not fun being a freshman as a linebacker because, even I remember freshman linebacker, I would go in, and I'm small. I'm 5'5". I was smaller then. I would run in, and I would have like Wes Maurer and then Frankie Ferrantino and then Johnny Oliver. And they just liked hitting us.
Yeah. The reality is you're not as big. You're not as strong. You may be able to play the game of football well, but there is a difference in speed and strength. And it isn't fun. I won't ever say it is. It's not fun. But if you can get better and push yourself every day, it's going to pay off long term. And you're getting those valuable reps. And again, for us, we happen to be okay this year. So you're playing against really good talent day in and day out. And that's only going to make you become a better player. So those guys definitely. I mean, I can sit here and name names. I'm actually very proud of the younger guys this year. They have stepped up tremendously.
Yeah, I'm going to give them a lot of. They have done a lot.
Yeah.
At practices, and I see it. And then you see it at JV games as well. They will have their JV mistakes, but you don't see as many of the JV mistakes as from my freshman year, where everyone's just kind of moseying out there. No one's really knowing what to do. There's a confusion about the offense, who's blocking who. People are running into their blockers because they don't know the blockers are missing assignments. So I think that's a cool thing that we have is that they're really well coached and they're really confident in how they play football.
And I agree with that. And again, our JV team is by far and away one of the youngest JV teams in the area. We have a ton of freshmen playing a lot of snaps. And that's usually not the case. Usually you get kind of that cushion year, especially where the way football is now with the numbers being down in a lot of programs. Again, we used to, when I was here, we had a freshman team. We had 25 kids. We could play a freshman, JV, varsity. Now we don't have that. And we have a smaller sophomore class, which has caused a lot of the freshmen to play JV reps, which historically they're sub guys. They're going to play, but they're not getting all those reps. And this year's different. And I think long term it's going to pay off for them. But they're taking their lumps. But I'm proud of the effort we've gotten out of them. It's been tremendous. And they show up every day going to work. So
do you think, like, in the future, because you have such strong players at the lower grades, that we're going to continue to be as good as we have this year, or even better?
So we already starting to see it. I'm involved in the youth as well. Our numbers in the youth program this year are up on every team. The senior group, which is 7th and 8th grade, has, I think, just under 50 kids. The 8th grade group itself is 32 kids. So that group's big. The juniors bumped up this year. I think they're at like 25, 26 kids now. The peewees, I think, are a little more than that. So again, it does coincide. If you look back in the history books, and I go back to even before I was here, to my time as a player and as an EL alum, from 04 to 8, then after, is historically this program has been strong and we've had good numbers. I know my freshman year, we had about 90 to 100 kids. Double what we have now.
Yeah.
The year after that, it was about 80 because the senior class wasn't big. That was my sophomore year was about 80 to 90. My junior year was about 60 to 70. And then my senior year, we were about 80, 90. So it was a lot of kids love playing football, and winning helps. No matter how much everybody wants to blur the lines on that, winning helps. And I think a product of us having, being a 500 team last year, but I still thought it was a successful year from where we were. And then into this year, it's buy-in. And first time in a long time, we have buzz in the town. Like, I think the program's doing a lot of things the right way. I think, again, winning obviously helps. And there's people who aren't associated with the program who are coming out for the first time in a long time. And I think that's only going to continue to grow. And it's the push for the culture. Like, I believe the game of football is you're as successful, as sometimes the talent you have, and I look like a great coach every week because we're winning. Nothing has changed. And Danny can attest to this from what we did last year at 5-5 to what we were 1-5 in the spring. Nothing has changed. I just look smarter now. And you'll hear me. It goes to the kids. They bought into what we're doing. We believe in hard work, and the plan is to continue it. Nothing should change. We're having success. So.
Now, how do you think for like practices compared to the week leading up to Chicopee Comp, where we had very poor practices, we weren't really into it, and then after that, when we were going into like bigger games, how do you think that our practices have shifted during those bigger games?
So one of the great things and the fun things about being a head football coach is understanding ups and downs and understanding. And I've been fortunate enough to do this a while as an assistant and just getting my reins in as a head coach is your team is going to go through peaks and valleys, right? The best teams are able to stay consistent at a high level. I've seen a lot of the successful teams over years. The most success we've ever had are teams that consistently practice hard and do well in practice. The week leading into Chicopee Comp, again, I know, Danny, you can attest for this, is Thursday after our practice that we had a bad week of practice. This is going to affect us on Friday. And it did. And it clearly shows. Again, the term is you practice how you play. If you practice like crap, odds are you're going to play like crap. That's the unfortunate reality. I'm going to be honest with you guys, especially in a game of football. But I think we have picked it up. And now we're at a point, and this is the game as a coach. You got to pick your battles. It is later in the season. We are officially 7 games in, 2 scrimmages in. We are a high contact team and a high contact sport. So now you got to pick your days. Players aren't going to have it every week. Marking periods are closing. There's a lot of extra stress. Like, this is the time of year where you got to understand when you can push and when you cannot push. And am I going to have the right answer for that every week? Absolutely not. Danny can attest to this. I've been willing to, hey, this practice stunk this week or today, and that's on me. But it's playing those games and trying to figure out what is best for your team and hoping you decided what was best. But now you're at the time of the year. You're getting ready for playoffs. It is tailored down. Now it's just trying to make our adjustments every week to the team we're playing and trying to figure out the best plan going forward with that. We don't need to hit every day. We don't need to be crazy every day. It's more of staying organized, making everything meaningful, getting the most out of it, and then getting ready to the next practice or game, whatever comes next.
So when we first started as a head coach, I believe we went like 10-10, but we never beat a winning team, right?
Yeah.
So how was that when you finally went against a winning team and you thought, like, we can really beat them? That was Wacona, I believe that game was.
Yeah. So, like the first year I said we were 1-5. That spring year, the COVID spring football season, we were not very good. We happened to win our first game and everybody thought we were great. We were not. I'll be the first to admit it. And I think everybody who's a part of that team will admit that too.
Yeah.
And then the next year, 5-5, but like you said, we never beat a winning team and we played close to a lot of winning teams, but I don't think we were ready yet to take the jump. It was huge. And I will say I'll use the word monumental to beat Wacona at Wacona as a winning program, a program I envy, who I think does everything right as far as on the field, off the field, culture. They are the group. Like, it's them and Central. If you want my honest opinions of 2 programs that do things the right way here and have things going for them the correct way, it's those guys. So to go up there and to do something we've never done, to beat Wacona in Wacona, for us, since I've taken over, to beat a winning program, which they're going to finish out as a winning program. They are 5-2 right now. And then I have a rumor, and I don't know how true it is, they haven't been shut out at home since 2004. So to do something that over 18 years hasn't been done, we've never done it as a program through maybe 10 games of playing them throughout our whole history of 50 years of football, was huge. And I think it solidified hard work and the things we were doing. But again, now it's funny you say like big moments and all that stuff. It seems like that was years ago now. Yeah. We've moved on. We've progressed. We've changed our goals. We've realigned our vision. And that's where we are now. Now we're playing at a time of the year where good teams last. And now it's to be successful, you have to beat those teams. And that's the difference now. Before it was, hey, can we do it? Now it's we can. And now it's going to be how many times hopefully we can do it.
Now, if you were to look at the, I don't know if you saw the Mass Live article about that Wacona versus Agawam game, but they interviewed the head coach and some of the players about it. And a quote from the Wacona head coach was, after an absolutely devastating loss from East Longmeadow, and then he continued to talk about against Agawam. So I think that was, when I read that was something I screenshotted and sent it to the football chat because I thought that was pretty cool. Because I don't think I've beaten Wacona ever. Every time I've driven to Wacona once. JV's always lost to them. So this was my first time beating Wacona for me. So it was a big game for me to go in there. And even if I didn't play a ton, I really wanted it.
Yep.
And it started with the first kickoff. They kicked it at me. And everything I had to go into every single play. And I think that was something cool that the team bought into was everything we have has to go into every single play. And I was not new, but and sometimes you'll see it against Iconic and comp, that wasn't the case.
I couldn't agree more. And again, I think it's crazy to think we're a team, and I believe this is me. Not every coach does this. I like to get to a field early, survey what's going on, see what's doing, get us settled so we can get ready to go. We arrived at that game a little over 40 minutes before it, which is very uncharacteristic of us. And I remember sitting on the bus being as calm as possible. And I think, Danny, you can attest to this, sitting not too far from me. I was as calm as possible. Guys, we'll figure it out. Don't worry. Inside, I was going nuts. I was absolutely going insane because I do not like to do that. But our players responded. They did play great, and it was awesome. Though, like you said, beating Wacona is a huge thing, and it was a devastating loss because I think the difference in us this year compared to a long time, in my opinion, and I've told you guys this, is we have a target on our back for the first time in a while. So
it makes me happy too.
Yeah, it's good to be. I'm a big chip on the shoulder type of guy who likes to prove yourself every week, but it is nice for once to, hey, we have a target on our back. People know we're good, and we're going to get their best every week. We've gotten it. Ever since I think we've gotten it every game this year out of most teams. Again, have we been better than a lot of teams? Yeah. But we got the best out of Westside, Wacona, Northampton for sure. And we got a really good battle with Agawam. And I expect this week against Amherst, we're going to get their best. Like, we are a team right now that a lot of people are talking about. So it's naturally going to be one of those things where we're going to get their best week in and week out.
Talking about getting their best, for the seniors, this week is the senior night against Amherst. So how do you think like the seniors have been different this week or even last week leading into this week? How do you think they've kind of like really progressed or been practicing harder or been preparing harder, like watching film or extra stuff?
So I always say senior night's a funny thing. And I can't stand senior night, if we're being 100% honest. I love our seniors. I want them represented. That's not what I do. But it's such a spectacle before it. Historically, we kind of forget we're playing football. And you can't afford sometimes to have a drive or two or three stall, and you kind of get lost in the shuffle. Again, it happened to Northampton. We stalled offensively and defensively, and we got behind. So those are always my main concerns. To be honest with you, I think this group especially, but I think even years past, I don't think seniors practice any harder because of senior night. I truly don't think they understand it until they line up to go out and get recognized as a senior when it's different. I don't think they know what senior night, but I don't think anything changes. I think you finally dawn. I know if that was for me as a senior, it finally hit me like, wow, I'm standing in line. I'm going to run through this gauntlet of players and meet my parents and all that stuff. Like, I think you realize it then. And Danny, maybe you can shed some light on me differently. I know that was me, and I always feel that way. I know maybe some seniors do practice harder because of it, but to me, it's a normal practice week until Friday night. And then maybe it hits you. And then maybe you realize, like, hey, this could be my last home game. And the reality is for our seniors, that there's a really good shot. Friday night's it. The last time under the lights for them at ELHS. And that's a crazy feeling. It's a surreal feeling because then you kind of start to look back and go, man, I was a freshman here. And I thought I had forever. And you don't. Clock ticks. And you only got so many years and so many games. In football, we don't have 20 games. You're fortunate enough if you get 12. Sometimes you get 11. Sometimes you get 10. So it's taking advantage of the opportunities and making the most of the moments.
Yeah, so speaking of like making the most of the moments, you played with at least Coach Hogan and Coach Lee. Mm-hmm. And then I don't think you played with Coach Morrissey. He went to, I forget where.
He went to Blue Hills. Which is out by Boston, Capish area. He's there, and Coach Carr played at Amherst. Yeah, I played with Coach Hogan. Coach Hogan was in the same class as me, class of 08. He was again, I'm going to use my Terrell Owens quote. That's my quarterback. Coach Hogan is my quarterback. I've known him forever. I've known him since I was really young. And Coach Lee, Mr. Lee, the same thing. I've known him forever. We're really good friends, both of those two, more than less than the other two. But I've grown to know Coach Carr, Coach Morrissey more, and we've become friends. And that's the great thing about football. We spend a lot of time together, So you grow and develop those relationships.
How is that like going from playing with them and getting yelled at by your coaches to do sprints to going all together and then like making us do sprints? How was that?
So like there really is, truly honest with you, there is no difference. I think the one thing is, and we have such a great group of guys, and like everybody sees me on the sideline. I'm a little nuts, and I get it. I'm a little excited about a lot of things. And, like I am just as hard on them as I am the players. I yell at those guys quite a bit, and it's not always seen, but I do. But But the reality is we're all on the same page. Nobody ever takes it disrespectful. It's all trying to do the things we need to do and get us in the place we need to be to succeed. And that's the great dynamic of our coaching staff. We haven't had that in the past. And I've been on staffs that doesn't work. But it works for us and we figure it out. But it's honestly, nothing changes. We still, again, me, Coach Lee, Coach Hogan, we still act like kids like we were in middle school and high school. Like that doesn't change. We still have a lot of the same dumb conversations and, it's still talking football. And Coach Lee was a huge factor in my success as a player. I was a sophomore when he was a senior. He taught me a lot of things. He taught me the ropes. And, we talk about those young kids pushing older kids and trying to do it. Coach Lee was a senior for me that pushed me to be better. He was throwing footballs with me almost every day out of season. And he's not great at it by any means. He's terrible, yeah, but he did. And he helped develop me to be the player I was. And I was an okay football player, but without him, I wouldn't have had that development. And he was as strong as they come, as good as they come. He was an all Western Mass representative, all league. He played in the Shrine Bowl, which that time was the best of Western Mass for Central Mass. He was as good as they get. And for me to practice against him every day was huge because I went into a Friday night going, if I can do anything against him, I can do it against anybody else. And it was huge for my confidence as a third-year football player at the time, starting in 8th grade, sophomore starter, 2 ways. My confidence got built by going against him. And he was very vital to my success, very vital.
So you're a teacher here at the high school now.
Yes.
And you taught in Springfield before that?
Yes, I did.
So what kind of classes did you teach in Springfield?
So I did special ed math in Springfield, 9th through 12th. And it was awesome. I loved my time over there. I love my kids. That was the hardest part about moving here, was that leaving my kids, that group I had been with forever. And I say forever, but it was I've been 4 years with them. They were about to graduate. And that was the toughest piece because those kids are my own, and a lot of my players and so even some of my students are starting to learn. It's like, I treat you like you're my own and I'll do whatever I can for you. And those kids I was very, very close with. So it was very tough for me to make this move. And I love this place. I call this place home for me as a student, as a coach who's been here for a while now. Like, this is home. I couldn't be happier to be here, but it was a very tough decision and didn't expect it to be. But I'm very happy I'm here now, and it's awesome.
So what kind of classes are you teaching here now?
So I'm doing special ed math as well. I have 2 classes of my own, in Algebra 2 and Discrete Math. And then I sit in with 2 classes. So it's been awesome. I get the best of both worlds. I get to lead a room, and then I get to sit and help and support, which is awesome because all teachers are always looking for extra support and all that stuff. And just being able to, again, reason why I got into this whole thing was to help kids. So to be able from a side and maybe work a little more one-on-one for 2 of those other classes is really awesome.
So what's it like teaching kids who only really knew you as a coach before this? What's it like having them in class?
So I actually don't have, I only have 1 player who's a student of mine right now currently for my classes that I teach. I believe I only have 1. So it's refreshing because it's all people who don't know me as coach, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it is refreshing because it is my football world is there. My teaching world's here. Yeah. It's 2 different things for me. How I act, how I behave, all that stuff is a little different. But and again, one of the things that I got asked when I applied for the job was, are you going to be able to separate football and teaching? I go, absolutely. Because I love teaching as much as I love coaching. So none of that really changes. This is here and that's there. Now, as far as seeing all the kids every day for a little bit more and making sure they're doing the things they're supposed to do, that has been helpful. I can tell you that. And it's been awesome to connect with them a little bit farther than outside of, 4 to 6. And I've been in this community long enough where I know a lot of other students who I've known through being my friends or things like that. And that's always an interesting dynamic as well. Because it's now weird for them to see me as a teacher when they've known me as maybe, hey, that's mom or dad's friend, and not Mr. Morrissino or Coach Morrissino. So it's been cool. It really has. And like I said, I've loved every second of it, being here. So do they act differently around you now that you're like, oh, he's a teacher now, I got to be careful? Or is it? I don't think so. And I think a fair point would be to ask Danny. I don't think they necessarily, I think there is a little bit he's in the school. And I do make a point to walk around and keep eyes on kids. But I think we've turned the corner. We're changing what this football program is. And we talk to the kids all the time about, hey, how you act, you are a representation of Spartan football. Whether we're in season, out of season, you're in the building, you're not, you're at Big Y, 99, whatever. You represent us. And I know a lot of people who are going to give me feedback about whether if you're doing something you're not supposed to do, it doesn't take long for me to find out. And our kids have found that out.
I've noticed that. We've seen it.
I know a lot of people in a lot of different places. So I think they've been maybe a little different, a little more conservative, I'm going to say. But I think it's also, that's the dynamic now. That's what our kids are. They're doing the right things, which is awesome.
What about I know you're talking about our GPAs. We've had a 3.0 for 2 years in a row now? Or is it 1 year?
We had over a 2.9. So we had over 3 the first year we took it over in the spring, which was monumental for us. Historically, we maybe have not been the, how do I want to say this, the highest academic of sports teams. And that was one of the things I wanted to change. I believe, when you get here as a freshman, sometimes you don't understand that your freshman year is arguably your most important year. And this is my belief. Everybody tends to think, it's senior year this, senior that academically. You send those applications in by January. If you're doing early enrollment, sometimes it's earlier. It's October, November. The reality is, as long as you don't mess it up, how much does senior year really matter? It doesn't. I've seen plenty of kids not have opportunities by a poor freshman year. So making sure it is important, making sure the kids understand it's different than Birchland Park. No offense to Birchland Park. High school is a different course load, and we all understand that. I understood it when I came here as a freshman. It is different. It's a little more demanding. You have to be a little more responsible. Things aren't catered to you as much. So it's crucial for that. And that was one of my big pushes, was making sure the freshmen understood they need a fast start. But going to your point is our goal was to have a 2.9. We crushed it. I think we were close to a little over 3. We were almost a 3.1. Last year, our goal was to get over 3. We got it. This year, our goal is a 3.1, which is a very high demand. And a lot of kids are doing what they're supposed to do. Are we going to get it? We're going to find out and see. I hope so. And a lot of kids have put a lot of work in. But again, I want to make sure every kid has an opportunity, whether they know what they want to do or not. When they leave this school, at least they have every option they could. And understand that the only things that will hold you back are you not taking care of things you're supposed to. Whether you know you want to go to college or not as a freshman, you don't need to know. But don't close a door. Keep a door open and give yourself the best chance. And if you don't want it, then great. You worked really hard. You learned a lot of things, and you move on to whatever you're going to do. So
the last thing I'll ask you before I let you go is what do you have any fundraisers that are currently being planned that we could talk about that we could really advertise for?
Nothing really now. Nothing on that end. Again, I'll just if I'm going to plug it, I'm going to plug Spartan football and go, we got a game Friday night. It's senior night. It's going to be a big one. The reality is this probably is our last home game. We don't know. State tournament's coming around. We need a lot of things to fall in our favor, which could happen. And it happened last year. But the reality is we don't know. We don't know what next Friday brings. We won't know till Monday at 10, 11 o'clock. But this could be the last opportunity to support Spartan football as a team this year, the 2022 group, which has done tremendous things. And I'd love everybody if they could come out to support us and then support us as we go. Who knows where the playoff game is going to be, how many playoff games we play. And then we got those guys across the street, as I'm going to say, on Thanksgiving over there. So we definitely going to need a lot of support. I'm not going to mention them because they're not important enough.
No.
So
can't dignify them.
No.
I know what you mean. All right, Coach, thank you for joining us today. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you all next time. Bye.